Okay, welcome to High Cheese with Darren Maloney. Today is Monday, April 4th, 2022. Well, the Biden administration let Title 42 lapse. So, in addition to the estimated 2.5 million illegal immigrants that have passed through the border since Biden took office and are in the country right now, we are now going to add an additional, and this is an estimate, 18,000 people on a daily basis into this country. Now, again, I have nothing against immigration, but it has to be legal. And what Biden is doing now is just opening our borders up. Now, let me tell you a little about Title 42. It was implemented during the Trump administration. And what it essentially said is that those immigrants wanting to come to this country, basing it on asylum, can be turned away because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was successful. The estimates are that about 1.7 million people have been turned away from the border during the past 2 years. Now, the statistic I'm interested in finding out is how many of those 1.7 million people that were turned away during the Trump administration, and how many of those 1.7 million were turned away under the Biden administration. If I get those, I'll bring them up at some further episode. But that's where we are right now. So we've already got 2.5 million people in here, and we're just going to add an additional 18,000 people on a daily basis because of letting Title 42 lapse. Now, let me get back to the immigration process. Someone that hits the border has, they claim asylum. And if they meet the threshold for asylum, and this is the funny thing about Title 42, if they met the threshold for asylum, they could be turned away because of Title 42. Or they can just sneak over the border without going through the checkpoint and hope they don't get caught, which is what most of the 2.5 million immigrants that are here since Biden took office have done. So now you get the asylum seekers coming in, and they're going to be allowed in also because they can't be stopped because of Title 42. And again, and this is one of the problems I have with us trying to protect Ukraine's border when we can't protect our own border, or we don't want to protect our southern border. You know, we want to send all these troops out to Europe for NATO, but why can't we put those on our border or do something? Now I hear that Biden wants to send Border Patrol agents over to Poland, and he doesn't want to send them down to our own southern border. But look, this is all by design. I think we should know this by now, that Biden is being manipulated by the extreme left, those people that hate our country and hate the existing culture in our country for whatever reason, and they just think that the rest of the world has a right to our country. And I'm not against immigration. We all like legal immigration, but it has to be done in an orderly fashion for a number of reasons. One, it costs money. Well, it just puts a tremendous amount of financial pressure on localities that are taking these illegal immigrants in. And they're put on the dole, and you and I are paying for it. I mean, look, it's nice, but it's nice to pay for everybody, but we can't afford it. We have a $30 trillion debt. And in order to feed these immigrants, illegal, in order to feed them, in order to house them, in order to school them, it costs money. And that's coming out of our pockets. Again, immigration is good. Illegal immigration is not. Now, a lot of you may wonder, well, what are these busloads of immigrants that are being transported throughout the country? You hear these stories in my area of the country that they're being flown through Westchester Airport in New York and all these other places, and then pushed onto buses and then dispersed throughout the country. I believe those people are the ones that have been caught, and they're just waiting for a court date before an immigration judge. Now, this court date before an immigration Judge, is different than seeking asylum. So I've got a feeling that these are people that aren't seeking asylum, but were just caught illegally. And what happens if you're caught illegally? They're not being expelled. These people are just given a court date to show up before an immigration judge to determine whether they should be deported. So I hope that's helpful. And it's also confusing. And I think it's by design to confuse you and me and to get these illegal immigrants into our country in our state of confusion. So as much as Biden is confusing in his own mind, I think the people that are pushing his buttons are quite happy with his state of confusion. Because with that state of confusion in him and this policy that he has, they can get as many illegal immigrants into this country as possible. And as I've stated in previous episodes, Trump can take care of this. Trump can fix this once he gets in. And again, he's done it before. He can do it again. It's going to take work, but he can do this. And look, it's a shame. I've got nothing against these people crossing the border. However, you have to do it legally. I live in the New York area, and there is a morning radio show host. His name is Len Berman. He's a former sportcaster here in the New York area. And I guess he has a morning show with Michael Riedel. And Len is the liberal, and Michael is the conservative in the morning radio show. But Len had made an interesting observation that I've heard from people over the past year or so. And it has to do with the high number of mixed race marriages you see in commercials today. For example, I think statistically only 15% of marriages are mixed race. And there's a much higher percentage of commercials that show mixed race couples. And again, this has nothing to do with racism. It has to do with the fact that it's not real. And we're being pushed a narrative that's not real. And African Americans see this. And let me just bring you up an article from, and this is taking from the voanews.com website. And it's an article here about the number of interracial couples that are on commercials. And let me just read a little bit from it. It says, one of the big cries has been to see more diversity, said Brando Simeo Starkey, a writer for The Undefeated, a website that focuses on the perception of race and culture. I think this is a good thing and a sign of progress. But he wonders why many interracial ads focus on white and black people and not other minority groups. Mark Jones, president of Jones Advertising in Seattle, Washington, said his agency tries to reflect multiculturalism in its ads. It's a conscious decision, and we're trying to better represent America, he told VOA. So again, this is a conscious decision by those in advertising to create a narrative that doesn't exist. I don't have a problem with interracial couples. However, in their world, everyone's an interracial couple. And again, as I said before, African Americans are seeing through this. Look, I grew up in a multicultural community, Teaneck, New Jersey. And I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood. We had different cultures, African American, white, Afghani, a lot. And the one thing I learned from living in Teaneck is that I had much more in common with my African American friend living down the street than I did with some wealthy white person that lived on the rich side of town. And I think that my African American friends felt the same way. They had more in common with me in my socioeconomic class than he did with a wealthy African American family that lived on the rich side of town. And I think what's happening, and you see this in the polls, that African Americans are seeing through this entire narrative, this entire story that's being created in Washington and in Hollywood and in advertising. It's just not real. Everybody says, oh, let's keep it real. Well, you're not keeping it real here when you're showing an America that doesn't exist. And let me just show you the recent poll here. I think last episode I mentioned that even the NBC poll had Biden losing ground with African Americans. And here is a poll, and this is from the Wall Street Journal poll from a week or two ago. It says here, Democratic margins also eroded among black voters who favored a Democrat for Congress by 35 percentage points in the new survey, down from 56 points in November. Support for a Republican candidate rose to 27% among black voters, up from 12% in November. And again, African Americans are starting to see through this. They just want you to be real, whether you're a politician, whether you're in the movies, or whether you're an advertising executive. Just keep it real. And I don't think we need, and I think you patronize us or you look down on us if you think that by you showing us a family of interracial couples normalizes us when we already know it's normal. I don't need you to tell me or show me that this is normal behavior when I already know that it's normal. I already think for most Americans, it's normalized. I feel it's normalized. I don't have any issue with interracial couples. I don't think you do. But the condescending position that these advertisers come in, you don't have to teach me anything. I think African Americans feel the same way. You don't need to show them that. Just keep it real, advertising executives. I've got a study here, and this was published in the March 18th issue of Journal of Current Issues and Research in Advertising. And it found that ads depicting black and white couples elicited more negative emotions and attitudes toward the brand than comparable ads showing the same race couples. Said the study's finding was somewhat surprising. And what they found is that among black people and white people, they had the same negative reaction to interracial marriages in commercials. I just find that interesting. Now, here's the interesting thing. It doesn't say why. And here's what I think. I think the negative connotations from these commercials, and it doesn't say the percentages. It just says that both black and white looked at these commercials in a bad light. And my theory on this is that they're not looking at this in a bad light because black people don't like white people or white people don't like black people. I think they're viewing this and saying, look, I don't need to be patronized here. However, when you're forcing me or when you think you have to force me to believe that something is good, I'm going to push back on that. And that's the one thing in Teaneck, going back to Teaneck too, I think Teaneck was the first town in the United States to start busing their children without a court order, something along those lines. But one thing I do realize is that the feeling among both black and white parents and people is they perceive this as the government forcing them to be friends with someone when they could do it on their own. Like, I don't need you to tell me who I should be friends with. I'll make that decision on my own. And this is the problem with the liberals. They don't understand human nature. They don't understand that people are going to be friends who they want to be friends with. They become friends with people in their own neighborhoods, whether that's black and white. And as I said before, I had more in common with my black friends than I did white kids growing up on the rich side of town. And again, it's all about this far left creation of a fake world, a fake universe. Again, 15% are mixed race, yet we see a higher rate of mixed race couples on commercials. And they're doing it by design. They admit it. And this just, let me just give you, and I'm going to read you an article here. And it kind of parlays into this fake world that's being created by the left. And it's from Breitbart. And the headline said, appeals court upholds huge verdict. Woke Oberlin College must pay $31 million to a bakery it smeared as racist. It says Oberlin College must pay a record $31 million to a mom and pop bakery that accused the school of ruining its business with false accusations of racism, according to 3 judges on the 9th District Court of Appeals, which issued a 3-0 decision upholding a 2019 ruling in the case. The award is the largest defamation verdict in Ohio history. It says here, Gibson's Bakery, a 135-year-old business near Oberlin College in Oberlin, Ohio, fell under attack after a 2016 incident in which the owner's son confronted 3 black Oberlin students who were stealing wine from the store. One of the students was caught stealing wine bottles from the store, reports Cleveland.com. While the suspects were arrested and later admitted to shoplifting, the ordeal nonetheless sparked school-sanctioned protests and allegations of racism, which hampered the store's business. So the bakery sued, and they won. In 2019, Lorain County Judge John Miraldi initially awarded the bakery more than $40 million in punitive and compensatory damages, but it was later reduced to $25 million. The bakery was also awarded more than $6 million in lawyers' fees. So it was upheld. And here's the interesting thing. After the judge's 2019 ruling, Oberlin College refused to apologize to the bakery because it wanted to avoid offending students with a different perspective. That's an alternate reality. The administrators at Oberlin College are feeding an alternate reality to their students. A different perspective? What could be different than, okay, the kids stole. They admitted stealing, but yet we're still going to call you racist because they stole? Again, it's a warped mentality. But it's this far left narrative that's just not real. And what I think eventually is going to happen is as these extreme left-wing people realize that their outlook on life and their political positions are bizarre, I think they're just going to fold inwards. And they're going to get into this whole meta thing with Facebook. You know, when they put these masks on, it covers their eyes, and they go into an alternate universe? I think they're going to wind up there. Because reality is going to come down on them hard eventually. And they have to realize that the way they view life is just not normal. And these liberals that protect this warped sense of reality aren't helping. So I think what's going to happen, they're just going to withdraw into the meta universe, an alternate universe that Facebook is going to provide for these people. It's shameful. I feel sorry for them, but we're going to win, not them. So the Senate Judiciary Committee came out with an 11-11 split vote on Ketanji Brown Jackson. From there, it will go to a vote later this week to confirm. It just came out that Mitt Romney is going to vote for Brown Jackson. And I think Senator Murkowski from Alaska is also going to vote for Jackson. Look, she's got a serious flaw in how she applies justice. I find it extremely difficult for anyone to overcome the fact that she has taken it easy on child pornographers. So we'll see what happens. I mean, politically, I think on the Democratic side, you've got the Senator Kelly from Arizona that's in a tight spot. Arizona is a conservative state, and he's up for re-election. I'm kind of interested to see how he votes, but we shall see. Again, the vote should be later this week. Okay, just a couple items before we move to business. It looks like President Zelensky from Ukraine has made an appearance at the Grammy Awards. Is he looking for a post-presidential career, or is he just looking to keep his face in the limelight? I really wish he would start focusing on settling with Russia in order to save the lives of his citizens. Again, I am not pro-Putin, but I think that the ball has always been in Zelensky's court. He screwed up early. He misread Russia. He misread the West. and it got him into this war, and it's him that can end this war. So I hope for the best, but you're not helping yourself by showing your face at the Grammys. Just my words of wisdom. Not that he's listening. Now, the other thing, and this ticked me off because I hate spending money. I just found out that the Secret Service agents that are assigned to Hunter Biden are paying $30,000 a month in rent for a mini mansion so they can be near him, which is absolutely incredible. And I'm not knocking the Secret Service. I'm just saying, hasn't this Hunter Biden cost this country enough? And just to read this, it's just like putting salt in the wound. So hopefully, instead of us being charged $30,000 a month in rent, we'll be paying a lot less for his incarceration. And I have no problem paying for his cost of incarceration. Okay, let's go to finance. Well, the news of the day is Elon Musk purchased 9.2% of Twitter. And the interesting thing is that he now owns more shares than Jack Dorsey does. Apparently, Jack Dorsey only owns like 4.5% of Twitter. And I think it's a good thing. Musk is a free speech guy, and I hope that he can get some seats on the board. Now, I find it funny, too, is that apparently he had to disclose his purchase within 10 days, according to SEC rules. And he took his time to disclose it. He disclosed it in 20 days. And essentially, he was just thumbing his nose at the SEC. The SEC can fine him up to $100,000 for disclosing this so late. I don't think he cares. He'll probably wind up paying it. And this is a good thing. Twitter finished up 27.12% to $49.97. So that's good news. The other thing, too, is the market's been having a nice little run-up over the past few weeks. And again, I think it's a bear market rally. And I think we're still headed for some headwinds. And I think there'll still be a lot of pressure on stocks for the rest of the year. So, although it's good news that the stocks are running up, I just think it's a bear market rally. We've got interest rates facing us. We've got a potential recession facing us. And the only thing that can keep stocks afloat this year are earnings. And I don't know how earnings are going to be good enough to keep stocks afloat when we're facing a slowdown. So we shall see. And then the last thing I just wanted to point out is that there are 19 states whose unemployment rates are lower than before the pandemic. And most of them are red states. Shocking, huh? Shocking. You'll find that the red states have addressed their COVID policies in a much more rational way than the blue states. And these red states are reaping the benefits now. I'm looking at Wyoming, for example. Wyoming is down 1.2 percentage points in their unemployment rate than when the pandemic began. West Virginia went from 5.1% to 3.9%. Mississippi went from 5.7% to 4.5%. Indiana 3.4% to 2.3%. Nebraska 3% to 2.1%. Kansas 3.1% to 2.5%. And this is all indicative of them creating responsible COVID policy. All right, now let's get to stocks. The Dow was up 0.3% to 34,921.88. Year to date, the Dow is down 3.9%. The S&P was up 0.81% to 4582.64. For the year, the S&P is down 3.85%. The Nasdaq was up today, and Nasdaq has been up quite a bit over the past few weeks. So it was up 1.9% today to 14,532.255. For the year, NASDAQ is down 7.11%. Oil was up today at 4.04% to $103.28 per barrel. Well, so much for the strategic reserve release. I think they had one day benefit. It went under $100. Today it's above 100, 4%. So I think I mentioned in my last episode that these releases have very little impact on the price of oil. You'll get a blip, but the market finds its equilibrium at some point. And right now, the equilibrium is at higher prices. The 10-year bond was up 4 basis points to 2.412%. Now, we also ended the day today with an inverted yield curve. As I said on last week, the inverted yield curve, which is the difference in the yields between the 2-year bond and the 10-year bond. If the 2-year bond is higher than the 10-year bond, it indicates a potential recession. And again, we ended the day today with another inverted yield curve. So again, we have to keep our eye on this. Again, it won't be surprising to me if we have a recession sometime this year. Gold was up 0.4% to $1,932.78 per ounce. Silver ended down 0.4% to $24.52 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at, and again, it's in the evening on April 4th, 2022. Bitcoin is trading at $46,628.38. Ethereum is trading at $3,519.53. And XRP is trading at 83 cents. Our earnings calendar is very light this week. Tomorrow, Tuesday, April 5th, we have Acuity Brands. We have Nova Gold Resources. We have Gold Mining, Inc., and American Cannabis. On Wednesday, April 6th, we have RPM International reporting, Levi Strauss, Skillsoft Corp. On Thursday, April 7th, we have Constellation Brands, Conagra, Lamb Weston Holdings, and S4 Capital. And then on Friday, we have Eli Lilly, Chorus Entertainment, and Natuzzi SPA. And let's go to the economic calendar. Okay, on Tuesday, April 5th, we have foreign trade deficit. We have the ISM Service Index. Then on Wednesday, we have the FOMC minutes. Then on Thursday, we have initial job claims, continuing jobless claims, and consumer credit. And then on Friday, we have wholesale inventories. So it's a light week on the economic calendar also. And with that said, I just want to leave you with an excerpt from the Trump rally from Washington, Michigan. And it's always good to hear from him. And remember, better days are coming, and he will be part of our better days. And again, thank you, and you have a good week, and I will talk to you on Saturday. Thanks again.
In American history, with his surrender in Afghanistan, that was terrible. And now Biden's weakness has given us the Ukraine disaster. It's a horrible thing to watch. Biden is also now pleading with the Venezuelan dictator to sell us oil. What do we need his oil for? We have so much right under our own feet, more than any other country. We have liquid gold under our own feet, and we're dealing with Venezuela. A far cry from the Trump administration, where we were energy independent for the first time in the history of our country. That was a year and a half ago. Seems like a long time ago, but we were energy independent. We were selling oil to other countries. We were making an absolute fortune. And you remember when, not so long ago, a year and a half ago, $1.87 a gallon. Remember that? And remember what I said during the debate and other times? I said, you don't pick me, you're going to be paying $7, $8, $9.